The evening began like any other busy night at the restaurant. Soft music played in the background, warm lights reflected off polished tables, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. The restaurant was known as one of the most elegant places in the city. People came here to celebrate special moments, impress business partners, or simply feel important. And behind it all stood the owner, a man who took great pride in his restaurant and even greater pride in his image. The owner stood near the entrance, carefully watching every guest who walked in. He believed first impressions mattered more than anything else. In his mind, the way a person dressed, walked, and spoke decided their value. He often told himself that this mindset helped him protect the restaurant's reputation. Tonight, he was determined to keep everything perfect. That was when the couple walked in. They did not look poor, but they did not look rich either. The man wore a clean but simple jacket, slightly worn at the edges. The woman had a calm smile and modest clothes, neat but not fashionable. They looked comfortable with each other, not trying to impress anyone. They paused at the door, gently taking in the beauty of the place, as if they were grateful just to be there. The owner noticed them instantly. His eyes moved from their shoes to their clothes, then to their quiet behavior. Something about them made him uncomfortable. They did not fit the image he wanted for his restaurant. They were not loud, flashy, or dressed in expensive brands. They did not act like people who wanted attention. To him, that was a problem. He did not greet them. Instead, he watched from a distance. The couple approached the reception desk and politely asked for a table. Their voices were soft and respectful. The young hostess smiled nervously, checking the reservation book. There were empty tables, clearly visible across the room. Still, she hesitated. She glanced toward the owner, who was watching closely. The owner slowly shook his head. The hostess felt confused. She knew there was space, but she also knew better than to question him. She told the couple to please wait for a moment. The couple nodded and stepped aside without complaint. They stood quietly near the entrance, giving space to others walking in. As minutes passed, more guests arrived. Well-dressed people were welcomed warmly and guided to tables immediately. The couple noticed this, but they said nothing. The woman gently held the man's hand, as if to say patience was not a problem. Their calm behavior made the owner even more uneasy. Why were they not leaving, he wondered. From his point of view, people who were treated this way usually became angry or embarrassed. They complained or walked out. But this couple stayed, calm and composed, almost peaceful. It made him feel as if he was being watched, judged silently, without a single word being spoken. The owner felt a strange pressure in his chest. He told himself he was doing the right thing. This restaurant had standards. Not everyone deserved to be here. That was his belief. Still, something about the man's steady eyes and the woman's quiet confidence bothered him. A waiter walked past and whispered that the couple had been waiting for a while. The owner waved him away, annoyed. He did not want his staff questioning his decisions. To him, this was his place, his rules. The couple continued to wait. They looked around with interest, admiring the artwork on the walls and the soft glow of candles on the tables. The woman smiled at a child passing by with his parents. The man nodded politely when someone brushed past him. There was no anger in them, no sense of entitlement. They behaved as if respect was something they carried within themselves, not something they demanded from others. The owner noticed all of this, even though he pretended not to care. He felt a strange conflict growing inside him. On one hand, his pride pushed him to ignore them completely. On the other hand, a quiet voice inside him questioned his judgment. Who are they, really? Why did they seem so calm in a place that clearly did not want them? Still, he chose pride. He turned his attention back to the dining room, greeting wealthy guests and laughing loudly, trying to shake the uncomfortable feeling. But every few moments, his eyes drifted back to the couple at the entrance. They were still there, patient and dignified, as if time did not matter to them. That was the moment when the first impression was fully formed, not just in the owner's mind, but in the story itself. A moment built on judgment, silence, and assumptions. A moment that seemed small, but would soon change everything. Because while the owner believed he was in control, the truth was already walking quietly through his doors, waiting to be seen. The couple remained near the entrance, their presence calm, yet impossible to ignore. The noise of the restaurant moved around them like a river flowing past two still stones. Laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music filled the space, but for them, time seemed to slow down. They stood close together, not out of weakness, but out of quiet understanding. Anyone watching carefully could see that they were used to waiting, not because they felt small, but because they believed patience revealed character. The staff noticed it too. A young waiter passed by and offered a polite smile, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He wanted to say something, to offer water, or at least acknowledge them properly, but fear held him back. The owner's eyes were always watching, sharp and controlling. In this restaurant, kindness had limits when pride stood in the way. The couple continued to wait without complaint. At the front desk, the hostess pretended to organize menus, avoiding eye contact. She felt a knot in her stomach. She knew what was happening was wrong, but she also knew the owner did not like being challenged. Every time another guest walked in wearing expensive clothes, they were welcomed with bright smiles and guided straight to a table. The contrast was impossible to miss. Other customers began to notice. A middle-aged woman sitting nearby whispered to her husband, pointing gently toward the entrance. Her husband frowned, clearly uncomfortable. Across the room, a businessman glanced over, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. The air felt different now, heavier, as if something invisible was pressing down on everyone. Still, no one spoke up. The man and the couple finally looked at his watch, not in anger, but in quiet awareness. The woman leaned closer and whispered something that made him smile softly. Whatever she said seemed to calm him even more. Their reaction confused the owner, who watched from a distance. He expected frustration, maybe even embarrassment. Instead, he saw peace. That disturbed him. He told himself they were pretending, putting on an act. In his experience, people like them wanted attention, wanted sympathy. But the longer they stood there, the harder it became to believe that story. They were not asking for anything. They were simply waiting with dignity that could not be bought. A senior waiter approached the owner cautiously and mentioned that several tables were still empty. His voice was low, respectful, but there was concern behind his words. The owner's face hardened instantly. He dismissed the waiter with a sharp look, making it clear the conversation was over. The waiter walked away, ashamed. The couple remained. Minutes turned into longer minutes. The music looped back to the same gentle tune. Plates were served, glasses refilled, laughter rose and fell. And through it all, the couple stood quietly, as if they were invisible, yet somehow more noticeable than anyone else in the room. The woman finally stepped forward and gently asked the hostess if there was any update. Her voice was kind, not demanding. She even apologized for asking. The hostess felt her throat tighten. She glanced again at the owner, hoping for a signal, but received only cold silence. She told the couple to please wait a little longer. The man nodded and thanked her. That simple thank you struck the hostess deeply. She was not used to being treated with such respect by guests who were clearly being ignored. It made her question everything about that moment, about the rules she followed, and about the man who owned this place. Across the room, the owner felt his control slipping. He noticed more eyes turning toward the entrance. He heard whispers growing slightly louder. This was not how the night was supposed to go. He had wanted perfection, not this uncomfortable tension. In his effort to protect his image, he was slowly damaging it. Still, he refused to change course. He convinced himself that giving in now would make him look weak. Pride wrapped itself around his thoughts like a tight chain. He took a deep breath and prepared himself to end the situation his way. The couple sensed a shift in the air. They exchanged a quiet look, one filled with understanding and something deeper, almost like expectation. Whatever happened next, they were ready. They had not come here by accident, and they were not afraid of what was coming. And as the owner finally stepped forward, his face set and his decision made, the silence in the restaurant grew thick. No one knew it yet, but this moment of silent disrespect was about to turn into a memory the owner would never forget. The owner finally made his move. He straightened his jacket, lifted his chin, and walked toward the couple with firm steps. His face carried the confidence of a man who believed he was in control. Conversations around the room slowly faded as people sensed something was about to happen. Forks paused midair. Glasses stopped moving. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. He stopped a few feet in front of the couple and looked them over once more, this time without hiding his judgment. His eyes were cold, his expression tight. In a clear, loud voice meant for others to hear, he told them that the restaurant was fully booked and that they would have to leave. There was no apology in his tone, no kindness, no effort to soften the words. It sounded like an order, not a request. For a brief moment, silence filled the space. The woman looked at the man beside her. Her eyes were calm, almost gentle. The man gave a small nod, as if he had expected this. Neither of them looked shocked. Neither of them looked angry. That, more than anything, unsettled the owner. Some guests shifted in their seats. A few looked down at their plates, embarrassed by what they were witnessing. Others watched closely, curiosity mixed with discomfort. The staff froze. No one dared to interrupt. The woman stepped slightly forward. Her voice was soft but clear. She thanked the owner for his time and said she understood. Her politeness cut through the tension like a sharp blade. It was not weakness. It was dignity. The owner was not satisfied. He repeated himself, this time louder, making sure everyone understood that the couple was not welcome. He added a few words about standards and rules, about how not everyone could be served here. Each word felt heavier than the last. He believed he was asserting authority, but to those watching, it sounded like humiliation. Still, the couple did not argue. The man reached for his coat calmly. The woman adjusted her bag. Their movements were slow and steady, as if they refused to let the moment rush them. Before leaving, the man turned to the hostess and thanked her for her patience. His voice held no bitterness, only respect. That simple act broke something inside the room. A few customers exchanged looks. One woman shook her head slightly. A young waiter felt his chest tighten with shame. This was not how decent people should be treated, no matter who they were. The couple walked toward the exit together. As they passed through the restaurant, something strange happened. The noise did not return. The laughter did not resume. The place felt hollow. People watched them go, not with relief, but with a sense of loss they could not explain. It was as if the restaurant itself knew a mistake had been made. At the door, the woman paused. She turned back and looked around one last time. Her eyes moved across the room, across the tables, across the staff, and finally rested on the owner. There was no anger in her gaze, no pride, just quiet understanding, the kind that made excuses feel meaningless. Then she smiled gently. The couple stepped outside and disappeared into the night. The door closed behind them, and with it went something the owner could not name. At first, he felt victorious. He told himself he had protected his restaurant. He returned to the center of the room and forced a laugh, clapping his hands lightly as if to shake off the moment. The music slowly picked up again. Conversations resumed, but something was different now. The owner felt it. His smile felt heavy. The room no longer felt warm. A strange tightness settled in his chest. He noticed people avoiding eye contact with him. Service felt slower. The energy he valued so much had drained away. In his mind, the moment replayed again and again. The calm voices, the polite thank you, the quiet smile at the door. For the first time that night, doubt crept in. He brushed it away quickly, telling himself it meant nothing. They were just another couple, nothing more, nothing important. Yet even as he tried to believe that, a small voice inside him whispered that he had crossed a line. Outside, the couple walked down the street side by side, unbothered by what had happened. They did not speak about it. They did not need to. They had seen this kind of behavior before, and they knew something the owner did not. What had just happened was not the end. It was only the beginning. The door had barely closed behind the couple when the atmosphere inside the restaurant shifted in a way the owner could not ignore. The music continued to play, the candles still flickered, and the waiters moved from table to table, but something invisible had changed. The room felt heavier, quieter, almost uneasy, as if everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one dared to say it out loud. The owner returned to his usual spot near the center of the dining area, trying to act normal. He laughed a little louder than necessary and greeted a group of guests with forced warmth. On the surface, everything looked the same, but underneath, tension was slowly building. He could feel eyes on him, not the admiring looks he was used to, but careful, questioning glances. A woman at one of the tables leaned toward her friend and whispered something, her face showing clear disapproval. Her friend nodded slowly. Nearby, a man pushed his chair back slightly, no longer comfortable. These small reactions did not go unnoticed. The owner sensed them, and they irritated him. He told himself people were too sensitive these days, and that he had done nothing wrong. Still, the unease remained. Behind the scenes, the staff felt it even more strongly. In the kitchen, a chef shook his head quietly while plating food. A dishwasher muttered under his breath about unfair treatment. The hostess stood frozen behind the desk, her hands trembling slightly as she pretended to check the reservation book. She kept replaying the woman's calm smile in her mind, and it made her chest ache. One of the senior waiters walked slowly toward the owner. He had worked there for years and had seen many types of guests come and go. His face was pale, his expression serious. He lowered his voice and said there was something odd about the couple who had just left. He felt like he had seen the man before, maybe in an important setting, but he could not remember where. The owner waved him off. He told the waiter not to waste time on people who did not matter. His words were sharp, almost angry. The waiter nodded and stepped away, but doubt remained in his eyes. The seed had been planted, and it refused to stay buried. As the night continued, strange little things began to happen. A table that was usually quick to order asked for the bill early. A group of regular customers skipped dessert. Someone left a napkin with a short message written on it, mentioning respect and kindness. Each moment felt small on its own, but together they formed a pattern the owner could not ignore. He started to feel restless. Every time the door opened, his heart jumped slightly, expecting to see the couple return. They never did. Instead, the memory of their quiet exit stayed with him, growing stronger with each passing minute. He found himself replaying the moment again and again, searching for something he might have missed. Why they stayed so calm, he wondered. Why had they not argued, not raised their voices, not begged or complained like others often did? In a quiet corner of the restaurant, two guests spoke openly now, no longer whispering. One mentioned hearing the couple's name earlier that evening. The other looked surprised and asked for more details. The owner caught only fragments of their conversation, but what he heard made his stomach tighten. There was recognition in their voices. Respect. His confidence began to crack. He tried to focus on numbers, on tables, on service, but his mind kept drifting back to the entrance where everything had started. For the first time in years, he questioned his instincts. The rules he had trusted so blindly now felt weak, even foolish. The hostess finally gathered the courage to speak to him again. Her voice shook as she mentioned that the couple had been incredibly polite and patient. She said they had not complained once. She did not accuse him. She did not raise her voice. But her words carried disappointment, and that hurt more than anger ever could. The owner snapped at her to get back to work. The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. He saw the hurt in her eyes as she turned away. Another crack formed, deeper this time. As the evening drew closer to its end, the restaurant felt emptier than usual, even though many tables were still occupied. The joy was gone. The energy was gone. What remained was an uncomfortable silence that refused to leave. The owner stood alone near the entrance, staring at the door. He did not know it yet, but the truth was already moving closer, carried by whispers, memories, and connections he could not escape. The couple he had dismissed so easily had left behind more than a quiet room. They had left behind questions, and those questions were about to demand answers. The night was supposed to be over, but for the owner, it felt like it was only beginning. Long after most guests had left, he remained inside the restaurant, pretending to check receipts and review tables. In reality, his mind was restless. The quiet felt louder than the earlier crowd. Every sound echoed. Every thought refused to settle. He poured himself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, staring at his reflection in the polished surface. The confident man he usually saw was missing. In his place stood someone uneasy, unsettled by a moment he could not erase. He told himself again that the couple did not matter, that they were just strangers, but his heart did not believe the lie. Then came a first real clue. One of the last remaining guests, an older man with calm eyes and a thoughtful expression, approached the counter. He spoke politely, asking if the owner had a moment. Something in his tone made the owner listen. The man mentioned the couple who had been asked to leave earlier. He did not accuse. He simply asked why. The owner felt defensive immediately. He explained his rules, his standards, his need to protect the restaurant's image. He spoke quickly, almost desperately. The older man listened without interrupting, then nodded slowly. When he finally spoke, his words landed like a quiet blow. He said he recognized the man in the couple. The owner laughed nervously, brushing it off. Many people looked alike, he said. The older man shook his head gently. He explained that he had worked in the hospitality industry for decades and had met many influential people. The man who was asked to leave was not someone you forgot easily. The owner felt a cold sensation crawl up his spine. Before he could ask more, the older man paid his bill and left, wishing him a good night. The door closed, and the restaurant fell silent once again. This time, the silence felt threatening. The owner stood frozen. Recognition, influence, important. Those words echoed in his mind. He turned and saw the senior waiter standing nearby, his face pale. The waiter hesitated, then spoke. He said he too had been trying to remember where he had seen the man before. And then it came to him. A charity event. A major one. The kind that attracted business leaders, investors, and city officials. The owner's heart began to pound. The waiter explained that the man was known for staying out of the spotlight, for dressing simply, for treating everyone with respect. He was also known for owning several successful businesses, including investments in restaurants. Very successful restaurants. The owner felt his mouth go dry. He asked for the name. When the waiter said it, the room seemed to tilt. The owner had heard that name before. Not just heard it, but spoken it with admiration. He had read articles about this man's work, his quiet influence, his generosity. He had once hoped to meet him, maybe even impress him. And tonight he had thrown him out. The realization hit hard. His legs felt weak as he lowered himself into a chair. The image of the couple standing calmly by the entrance returned with painful clarity. The patience, the dignity, the silence. It all made sense now. They had not needed to prove anything. They already knew who they were. The owner pressed his hands together, trying to steady his breathing. Panic began to rise. What would this mean for him? For his business? For his reputation? In this city, words traveled fast, especially among people who mattered. He stood up suddenly and asked if anyone had seen where the couple went. The hostess shook her head softly. They had left quietly, she said, thanking everyone on the way out. That detail hurt more than anything else. They had shown grace even in disrespect. The owner walked toward the door and looked out into the empty street. The city lights reflected on the pavement, cold and distant. He imagined the couple walking away, hand in hand, already moving on from the moment that was now tearing him apart. For the first time, true regret set in. Not regret because he might lose business, not fear of consequences, but regret because he had failed as a human being. He had chosen judgment over kindness, pride over humility. And now, the truth was clear. The couple he had dismissed so easily were not just important. They were powerful in the one way he was not. They had character, and that was something money, status, and a fancy restaurant could never buy. By the next morning, the owner had barely slept. His thoughts kept circling back to the same moment, the same calm faces, the same quiet exit. Sunlight crept through the restaurant windows as he arrived early, long before staff or customers. The place felt different in the daylight, less impressive, almost exposed. Without the evening glow and music, it looked like what it really was, just a building, not the shield he had always believed it to be. He sat alone at one of the tables, replaying the night again and again. Every detail now carried new meaning. The patience of the couple, their politeness, their silence. What he had seen as weakness was actually strength. And the more he thought about it, the heavier his chest became. The truth spread faster than he expected. Before lunch, his phone began to buzz. First, it was a message from a fellow restaurant owner, asking if everything was okay. Then another, more direct, hinting that people were talking. By noon, he had received calls from 2 business contacts who sounded distant, cautious. No one accused him openly, but the change in tone was impossible to miss. He opened his laptop and searched the man's name. Article after article appeared. Interviews, photos from charity events, awards for community work, mentions of quiet generosity, of investing in businesses that treated employees well and valued respect over profit. The owner stared at the screen, feeling smaller with each scroll. This was the man he had humiliated in front of a room full of people. And the woman. She was mentioned too, not just as his partner, but as a leader in social projects, someone deeply involved in mentoring young entrepreneurs and supporting fair business practices. Together, they were known for observing quietly, choosing carefully, and walking away when values did not align. The owner closed the laptop slowly. He understood now. Their visit had not been random. They had been exploring, watching, learning, and he had failed the test without even knowing there was one. When the staff arrived, the tension was clear. People spoke softly. Eyes avoided his. He tried to act normal, but it felt impossible. Every movement felt heavy, every word forced. The hostess looked at him briefly, then looked away. He wanted to apologize, but the words stuck in his throat. Around midday, a delivery arrived with papers inside. One document caught his attention immediately. It was an inquiry, not official yet, but serious. A potential partnership, one he had hoped for months to secure, was being reconsidered. The name at the bottom confirmed his fear. The consequences had begun. He walked into his office and shut the door. For the first time in years, he put his head in his hands. There was no anger left in him now, only regret. Deep, uncomfortable regret that reached beyond business. He thought about his early days, when he had opened this restaurant with passion and dreams. Back then, he welcomed everyone with warmth. Somewhere along the way, success had changed him. Image had replaced values. Judgment had replaced curiosity. And now, he was paying the price. That afternoon, he made a decision. He asked his staff if anyone knew how to contact the couple. The senior waiter hesitated, then shared what little he knew. An assistant, an office, a foundation. The owner wrote everything down carefully, his hands shaking slightly. He drafted a message, then erased it. Drafted another, then erased that too. Words felt weak compared to the damage he had done. Finally, he wrote a simple message, not as a businessman, but as a person. He admitted his mistake. He apologized without excuses. He did not ask for forgiveness. He only asked for a chance to say, sorry face to face. He sent it and leaned back in his chair. The wait felt endless. Hours passed with no reply. The restaurant opened for dinner, but the owner stayed in the background. He watched his staff carefully, noticing how much he had taken them for granted. He saw fear, yes, but also kindness. Qualities he had ignored for too long. Just as he was about to give up hope, his phone vibrated. It was a short message. The couple had read his apology. They agreed to meet. Not at the restaurant, but somewhere neutral. Somewhere quiet. The owner felt a mix of relief and fear wash over him. This meeting would not be easy, but it would be honest. And for the first time since the night he made his biggest mistake, he felt something close to hope. The day of the meeting arrived with a weight the owner had never felt before. He left the restaurant early, dressed simply, stripping away the careful image he usually displayed for guests. He did not want anything between him and the truth. Not the polished tables, not the music, not the bustling staff. He only wanted to face what he had done and hope that humility could somehow bridge the gap he had created. The chosen location was a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city. It was far smaller and less fancy than his own restaurant, with simple wooden tables and a few potted plants along the windows. It was calm, serene, and completely neutral. He arrived first, sitting at a table in the corner, hands folded nervously, staring at the door. Every time it opened, he thought it might be them. Each moment of waiting felt like a test of patience he was unaccustomed to. Finally, they arrived. The couple walked in together, calm, confident, and entirely composed. The man's simple jacket and the woman's modest outfit made them almost unnoticeable to anyone else in the cafe. Yet to him, they were the most important people he had ever seen. Their presence carried a quiet power that no wealth, no title, no restaurant could ever project. They greeted him politely, without anger, without resentment. The owner's throat felt tight as he tried to respond, feeling the weight of every word he had left unsaid for days. He invited them to sit, and they did, their composure unshakable. He began to speak, fumbling at first, struggling to find the right words. I need to apologize, he started, voice low, almost shaking. What happened at my restaurant? I acted arrogantly. I judged you unfairly. I treated you in a way no guest should ever be treated. I was wrong. The woman's eyes softened, and she gave a small nod. The man leaned forward slightly, but said nothing, listening. I don't expect forgiveness, the owner continued. I only wanted to explain myself, to admit my mistake, and to take responsibility. I let pride and fear guide me instead of respect and humanity. I hope you can understand that it was not who I truly am, though it certainly was who I was in that moment. There was silence. A heavy, meaningful silence. The couple looked at each other briefly, sharing an unspoken understanding. Then the man spoke, calmly, without accusation. You made a mistake, he said. But recognizing it, that's the first step toward making it right. Everyone has moments they regret. What matters is what you do next. The owner felt his chest tighten. He had prepared for anger, for condemnation, even for confrontation. But this was grace. The kind he had never expected. The woman added, we could have reacted differently. We could have demanded respect. But we chose to leave quietly. That does not mean we do not care. It means we value our dignity, and we believe in giving others a chance to recognize theirs. Her words hit him deeply. The humility he had dismissed so easily the night before now felt like a mirror, reflecting every flaw he had tried to hide. He realized that the couple had been testing not just him, but the entire restaurant's culture, the way he treated people, the way he allowed appearances to dictate behavior. I understand, he whispered, almost to himself. And I will change. I promise. This will never happen again. The couple nodded. No further words were needed. They had said enough. Their quiet power, their patience, and their dignity had conveyed the lesson far better than any scolding or argument ever could. They stayed for a while, talking about life, business, and community, sharing small stories without ever letting pride dominate the conversation. The owner listened, absorbing every word, realizing that influence was not about wealth or status, but about character, empathy, and respect. As the meeting ended, the couple stood and smiled gently, their calm confidence unchanged. They left the cafe, not with resentment, but with quiet authority. The owner watched them go, understanding fully for the first time that lessons like these do not come often, and they cannot be ignored. He sat there for a long moment after they left, feeling a mixture of relief, humility, and determination. This was more than an apology. It was a turning point. He knew that his actions from this day forward would define him far more than any menu, any decor, or any award ever could. And for the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility not as a burden, but as a guide. He would rebuild trust, not just with the couple, but with every guest, every staff member, and every decision he made. The mistake was past, but the lesson was forever. The encounter had changed him completely, and he would carry that truth for the rest of his life. The morning after the meeting, the restaurant felt different, though nothing had physically changed. Tables were still polished, lights still glowed warmly, and the soft hum of kitchen activity continued. Yet the energy was entirely new, lighter, more purposeful, and for the first time in years, honest. The owner arrived early, walking through the doors not with pride, but with intention. His steps were steady, but his mind was alive with reflection, replaying the lessons of the night before. He began with small changes. Staff meetings were different now, no longer about rules, about appearance, or about impressing guests. They were about respect, about dignity, about noticing people, even those who seemed ordinary at first glance. He spoke openly about the mistake he had made, about the couple he had judged unfairly. He did not expect applause or praise. He only wanted transparency. The team listened quietly. Some eyes were wide with surprise. Some heads nodded slowly. They could feel that the owner had truly changed. He had shed pride, if only for a moment. And in that moment, he had gained something far more important: humility. Word of the incident had quietly spread through the local community. To his relief, the couple had not sought retaliation or attention. Instead, they had continued their work, moving with grace and influence that could not be ignored. The owner realized that their power lay not in their names, their status, or their wealth, but in how they conducted themselves with dignity, patience, and understanding. The first guests arrived as usual, and the owner made a conscious effort to treat every single one of them as if they were extraordinary, not because of what they wore or where they came from, but because every human being deserved respect. The couple's lesson echoed in his mind. Appearances can deceive, and true value is often quiet and subtle. By afternoon, regulars noticed a change. Waiters smiled more genuinely. The hostess greeted everyone warmly, without hesitation. Even the senior waiter, who had been nervous after the previous night, moved with a newfound confidence, encouraged by the atmosphere of sincerity. The restaurant was the same on the outside, yet it now felt like a place that welcomed hearts, not just wallets. The owner knew, however, that personal growth required more than just improved behavior in the restaurant. He reached out to the couple once more, not with expectation, but with openness. A message was sent, not to apologize again, but to thank them for teaching him, for showing him that respect cannot be demanded, and for reminding him of the human responsibility he had long ignored. He spent the rest of the day reflecting on the encounter, replaying every moment with care. The way the man had waited calmly, the way the woman had smiled without bitterness, their quiet exit, and the dignity they carried. It was a lesson that could not be forgotten. Pride and arrogance, he realized, are easy. Patience, grace, and humility require strength far greater than he had imagined. Over the following weeks, the transformation became visible not just to him, but to every guest, every staff member, and even to the local business community. The restaurant began attracting a new kind of respect, one earned through sincerity rather than spectacle. Stories of the couple's visit became quiet legends among the staff, a reminder that moments of judgment can teach lasting lessons. Late one evening, after a long day of service, the owner paused by the door and looked at the empty streets beyond. He imagined the couple walking calmly away from the restaurant months ago, unbothered, holding their dignity like a shield that no one could break. Their presence had not been a threat, but a mirror, showing him who he had been and who he could become. In that moment, he finally understood the truth. The greatest lessons do not come from those who punish us, but from those who challenge us to see beyond ourselves. Judgment can destroy, but humility rebuilds. Pride may impress, but kindness endures. From that day forward, the restaurant no longer just served food, it served respect, attention, and care. Every guest was welcomed as a person, not a transaction. Every decision reflected a commitment to honesty, not image. And in the quiet moments, when the lights were low and the last customer had left, the owner would smile to himself, knowing that the couple's influence had changed more than his business. It had changed him. It was a transformation that could not be undone, and he carried it quietly as a constant reminder that appearances are fleeting, but character lasts forever.